Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, and welcome back to the Baseball Head. And hopefully you like this video. Hit that subscribe button before we get this video about the Mets. And possibly, still there's always trade talk. There's always trade talk going on. You never know. Couple of things. Shomania has begun throwing again. If you haven't heard that, that's good news. There is an issue with Brandon Nimmo's knee, which I didn't know that he had a previous injury to his ACL. So that's why his knee's giving him issues right now. He should become a regular DH once he gets back as a regular player. And we're less than 2 weeks now away from opening day. As you know, Jeff McNeil's not going to be playing. He's not going to be ready for the season, which is fine. We'll get, we hope that Brett Baty has a chance to finally do what everyone said that he could do in the majors. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Luis Angel Acuna, what his role will be, because now they need a guy that's going to need to play second base and a backup infielder. So that possibly opens the door for both of them. Also keep an eye on De Los Santos being on this team and possibly Donovan Walton. So they're all kind of competing for those last two spots. Also, we want to see Starling Marte play a little bit more, because he'll probably be playing in the field more with this injury to Nimmo. Also, keep an eye on Edwin Diaz. The velocity that he threw the other day when he came into relief was not very high. That's a concern, because that means it could be an issue with the arm. So with his elbow, he's throwing like 92 miles an hour. That's concerning to me. But we have a trade rumor for you. This was from a few days ago. This is from MLB Trade Rumors. This is from the Post. Padres have received interest from around 9 teams on Dylan Cease. Wasn't that interesting? Around 9 teams have been in contact with the Padres to express interest in Dylan Cease. According to the Scout Boris whisperer John Heyman of the New York Post, Heyman listed Cubs, Mets, and all 5 AL East teams among that group. The remaining 2 clubs are unknown, though the Athletic reported in January that the Twins had shown interest. I would think that with the Yankees losing Garrett Cole, they would be more interesting in Dylan Cease, but I don't know about that. I don't know about that, and I don't know about this thing about the Rays. I don't know about that either. A pre-opening day trade still seems highly unlikely. Kevin Acee of the San Diego Union Tribune wrote earlier this week that the Padres were only willing to entertain trading their top starter if they received a significant offensive upgrade in the return package. They almost certainly want a controllable starting pitcher who could immediately replace Cease in the rotation as well. That's a difficult asking price for another team to meet, especially without impactful hitters remaining in free agency to backfill the lineup. I mean, they're not. I mean, if you're asking for those kinds of things, you're not going to have a trade. But I would mention that the Padres always seem to find good players, and they always seem to figure it out. Cease was traded midway to the last year's spring training. That was a different situation, as the White Sox were in full rebuild mode, which they still are now, when they dealt into the Padres. San Diego expects to compete for a playoff spot despite budget limitations that kept them from doing much of the significance until they added Nick Pivetta on a backloaded 4-year deal. Now, the Padres have a lot of problems with their ownership. A lot of problems there. They're fighting with each other, not getting along, and they basically said they're not going to be able to spend. The word was during the offseason that they were going to get rid of players. They didn't get rid of anybody. They didn't move anybody. The Padres and Cease agreed to a almost $14 million salary for his final arbitration season. He'd be a lock for a qualifying offer when he hits free agency next winter, unless the Friars deal him mid-season, which would make him ineligible to receive the qualifying offer. Cease will be heading into his age 30 season and could command a contract above $200 million. While the Padres don't seem optimistic about their chance of re-signing him, they'd obviously take a major upgrade this year's rotation if they trade him. The Munchkin, Ken Rosenthal, and Patrick Mooney of The Athletic reported earlier this week that the Orioles and Cubs were monitoring the rotation market. Now, Baltimore, think about Baltimore, they have a lot of great positional talent, but not a lot in their rotation. Baltimore will begin the season without Grayson Rodriguez. He's injured. He's got I guess it was forearm. Chicago's rotation hasn't taken any huge injury hits, though they'll be without Javier Assad for a few weeks. They're reportedly in talks with free agent Lance Lynn, who will be a match less costly but far lower upside addition at the back of the rotation. Of course, he's much older too. The Mets don't have Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea. Montas will be back sometime in June. Manaea, like I said, is beginning to throw, so he should be back sometime in April. And the Yankees are without Garrett Cole and Luis Hill. As you know, Gill's going to be out for a while, but Garrett Cole is out for the entire season. He got Tommy John surgery. Nevertheless, respected baseball operations leaders David Stearns and Brian Cashman have indicated the New York teams are content with their internal options to weather those losses. Now, Manaea is not going to be out that long. Montas is going to be out a little longer. Mets have some depth here. The biggest issue with the Mets rotation is Kodai Senga, who's not pitched well in spring training, but that doesn't really matter. The bell hasn't rung yet, but he did not pitch well in the postseason. Not that that means much, but so keep an eye on that's a little concerning to me with Senga, because Senga obviously did not get nearly as much money as he might have gotten when he came over here because of his physical situation. The Mets have a very interesting team, as you know, because the offensive part of the club, the everyday players, must have great everyday players now, and they need better pitching. The best thing you could do for your club at this point in time is to have a good farm system where you develop your own pitching. That way you don't have to spend a lot of money on pitching. And if you need somebody, you get them. And I would mention this, and I think this is important to keep in mind as well, is that the Mets have not made any major trades over the last 4 years since the Javi Baez deal, where they traded major prospects for a player. And I think that they've done a good job with that. They've not moved players. In the past, so many people were calling for Mark Vientos to get moved. He didn't get moved, and he's on the verge of being a star. He's not quite there yet. He's almost there. But the Mets have not done that. And in the meanwhile, the Mets have developed some pitching in their minor league system, like Jonah Tong, Nolan McLean, obviously Brandon Sprout. Those guys are going to, specifically Sprout and McLean, they're going to be helping them this year, barring injury. Sprout could be here by May. I would mention about him, he will not have much of an innings limit on him. Because, first of all, he was a player that, when he was in college, pitched 4 years in college. So his innings limit is much higher than, say, like someone like Nolan McLean, who was a two-way player and he was rather limited in terms of the innings. He'll be more on an innings limit, as well as Tong. Laid it down. Or just use Tong as an example. But with Sprout, his innings limit is not nearly going to be as limited as, say, for instance, Clay Holmes, who's, of course, the Mets' opening day starter. So that is something you need to keep in mind as we go on. Clay Holmes is going to be on an innings limit. That's why a guy like Brandon Sprout's going to come into play this season, as well as McLean, because then they can sort of shift them and move them in and out of the rotation. Also, guys like Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill, Max Kranick down the road. It's a couple of guys that are in the Mets in spring training that you got to focus in on and keep them in the back of your mind in the minor leagues. So Mets have a very good shot at getting a lot of wins this year, barring injury. That's always the biggest thing, really, with any team. But I would mention all the injuries the Mets have had are not catastrophic. They're all injuries that just takes time to heal. If there is an injury of concern, it's the Brandon Nimmo injury. But he says he'll be ready for the season. I don't think he's even playing the field. He shouldn't play the field anymore anyway, because of that bad foot, that bad foot that he had last year. And he's had these issues with his legs anyway. He should just get off his feet altogether. But you let me know what you think about this video. Of course, if you send me a super thanks, you get acknowledgement, and on a future video, you get acknowledgement to a community post, and you, of course, get my eternal gratitude. And, of course, I hope that you become a member of the channel. That That way I can use that money and do better videos for you, and I'm not doing it with my phone all the time. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.